Okay, and I'm just still fussing a little bit, but that's okay. All right, I need to, all right, so there's a good amount of people today. That's awesome. And this is Crystal Capsule. Somebody still got their microphone open. If people can, with the exception of Tanya, who's going to interrupt me.
I'm going to go ahead and mute mine until I need to talk, so you don't get a lot of the background.
Perfect. Perfect. Very good. All right. So my name is Tanya O'Grady, and I also go by Mystic. It's a self-chosen name. I am teaching the Crystal Capsule, and today we are going to be looking at the color yellow, or the energy center that goes with yellow. And then we'll be looking at a couple of stones that carry that frequency. I always go through a couple of things with every class so that everybody just remembers. I don't clean crystals with water or salt. Some people are comfortable doing that. I'm not comfortable because there's so many ways that it can damage it. I use smoke and sound and breath, sunlight and moonlight. Sunlight, you need to be a little careful with. Certain stones are more sensitive. Fluorite's sensitive to sun, so you don't want to leave it in the sun for too long. And most crystals, if you leave them in the sun, will fade a bit. So those are the main things about cleaning. About charging them, you can charge your stones with sunlight, moonlight, and intention, which is the most I think it's the most powerful way, is because you are charging it with your frequency, with the intention that you have for that stone. And programming, again, is the same, is very much like charging. Programming is when you are opened up to the stone and you request the stone for its assistance in a specific capacity. Now, I always use the analogy of perfume. If you've done any research with crystals or have taken any other crystal classes, everybody's got their own translation of what crystals mean. And so for me, I think what's really important is what it feels like to you as an individual person. Like perfume, you can smell it. So there's going to be a frequency that's common, but then for someone else, it may have a different kind of frequency. Like perfume can smell incredibly different between two people. And so I think crystals can react the same, because they will react to you. People ask me, what are the first crystals I should get? And, which ones should I look for? And I think that always, if you're going into a crystal store, or even if you're looking online, just whichever one catches your eye, whichever one you're attracted to, is probably the one that will do what you need it to do at this time. And so that's really important to remember, that just because the book says it makes you happy and energized, but you find it calming, doesn't mean that either are wrong. What it means is that you are picking up on a different level, or it's mixing with you and providing a different kind of frequency, because every person's frequency is different. So many times I have been starting the class with sort of like trying to become more sensitive electrically. We're talking about the energy centers. They're also called chakras, but I was trained to call them energy centers. And because there's so many different cultures that use these same energy centers, I just feel that that is the phraseology that works best for me. So one of the things in working with crystals is being able to sense electrically, to be able to be more sensitive to the frequency of things. And part of how you can do that is by working with your hands. You can get them sensitized. You can clap them a little bit. You can rub them. You can do it away from it. You can sort of bounce it back and forth, and your hands will start to tingle, and they will start to feel, you'll be able to feel the energy between your hands. And so I think that this is really important, because that's part of how you open up to a crystal, how you pick up on its frequency, and then also how you program it, because your hands need to be sensitized to your frequency. And you can hold a crystal, and then you can charge it, request of it what you need it to do. I think that, all right, so these are things I go over every time. There's other ways to read electrical centers and electrical areas that need to be healed, or that are hot spots that maybe need to be cooled down. So you can do it with your hands, which is how I do it. You can also do it with a pendulum, and you can do it with dowsing rods as well. If you ever want to be able to feel, or have someone, if you're working with someone, feel the aura, you can take dowsing rods, and the dowsing rods will cross. They'll cross when they hit the edge of the aura. And then there's different layers in the aura, but they'll cross when they hit that edge of the aura. And then they'll be very sensitive to the etheric, which is that small bit around the human body, which is to do with physical health. Most of us have seen that. You can see it on plants, you can see it on animals, and you can see it on a human, especially if there's a white background. You can sometimes see it a little bit like a halo, just around someone. And so those are part of being able to start to sense electrically. Now, I'm bringing this up because crystal work and crystal healing has a lot to do with that unseen aspect of things. Hang on one second. I just need to have a fuss with my thing. Okay, well, I can't see myself at all. Am I doing okay? Do I look okay? Can you see me? Am I staying in focus? Okay, silence is good. And so, yeah, so electrically, we want to be able to sense things. I find that if I bounce my hands is one of the best ways for my hands to turn on, but there's lots of different ways for that to work. If you have a way that you have found it to work, then that's the best, is if you find what works best for you. So today we're going to talk about yellow and the energy center, the solar plexus. And this is, so we talked about the root, sort of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've talked about the root, which is the survival, basic, and then the sacral. And so now with yellow, and the sacral kind of moves into, there's no specific clear line between where orange stops and yellow starts. It doesn't work like that. They overlap. That's why you'll see stones like malachite, where it talks about it's part of the heart. It's part of the heart electrical center or energy center, but it's also part of the solar plexus. And that is, they blend over. So it's not this sort of like boom, 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 boom. It sort of moves, it's smooth along the lines. So with yellow, this, it resonates with the solar plexus, and it also starts to resonate with the mind. And you think about it's the power of the sun. So there's this energy and cheerful kind of aspect that comes with it. But it also, when you're looking at, and this is very much in the light of this electrical center, this energy center, is this is where your identity or your personality, the imprints of history starts to present itself. And this is also where things come to light that need to be addressed. I know that I have mentioned very lightly shadow work. This is probably the place where people do the most shadow work to start with. That doesn't mean you don't do the work below on the other, or the centers that are in this sort of like linear thing, the ones that are on the lower part, the sacral and the root. But here we're starting to build one's identity, one's personality, how one goes on in life. So there's both sides to this. There's the color of yellow, when it's working in the best part of oneself, it provides clarity, it provides balances, it provides, my cat is on my notes, excuse me. It provides energy, and it's where you start to really feel your emotions. And these emotions can, oh, bye, Terry. I saw the note. I can see the note now, Tanya. It pops up at the top. Woo, got it. So lost my train of thought. So this is where we start to get a sense of our self-worth and of our, so if we have a history of being put down, or we have made decisions in life that have been compressing to who we are authentically, this is very much where the start of that work starts to come in, because this energy is it's the yang of that sort of yin. It's the balances it out. So it starts to balance out that negative depression, anger, that ego in terms of selfish focus ego, as opposed to the ego of oneself that is working towards becoming more authentic. So this yellow, and it's the start of the integration of all of these things. It has, when yellow comes in and when it's needed, it's good for self-motivation, for enthusiasm, sort of that youthful enthusiasm that sometimes we need as life goes on and compounds and puts more on us than.
Did you clean it? Okay, that's enough.
Okay. Does someone have a question? Okay. So this is where the more work that you do with yellow, then the more you will see some of the things that you struggle with. And this can be depression and anxiety and anger, and the more that the yellow comes in and heals some of those aspects of life, those things will come up, and so they get balanced with the yellow. This also includes gold, where there's many of the same aspects: motivation, determination, but with the golden crystals, there's more abundance, and obviously we associate wealth with the color gold and the metal gold. Like pyrite is good for abundance and for improving one's status financially. So wealth, and actually wealth can be a lot of things. Wealth can be happiness. Wealth can be family life that works, that flows, that's good. And so those are some of the golden crystals. And I also wanted to mention the yellow into green, because next week's going to be green. And the yellow, really, they are very close together. And they're actually of the centers in the body, they're really close together, because the heart center is right where your heart is, and the solar plexus is just like 2.5 inches, 3 inches down. And so they're very close together, and they meld a lot of the same things, in terms, especially in terms of struggles, show up both in the yellow and the green. And sometimes they can show up in the green, and you have to go back to the yellow to be able to start to shift it and start to change how you think about things, how you, because it's also, like I said, it's connected to the solar plexus. It's also connected to the mind. There is a big aspect on how you think about things. And this yellow allows that follow through, that determination, motivation, being able to, like if you've got procrastination, which may be when yellow gets clumpy and you start to clear that out, then you start to feel more motivated. You start to feel more determined. So that is some of the work with yellow. It is energy and emotions. I'm just going over my notes to make sure. So when you're healing with yellow, you will be releasing some of those negative patterns. So if you do healing work on yourself, or if you're doing it on someone else, this may be a situation where they have a release. And so someone or you may burst into tears without realizing why you're crying. And part of that can be that you are releasing the negative patterns, in specifically to do with one's self-worth, and also to do with the mind, and how, as you unravel that, then those release the negative. It can come out as crying. I think that having an outlet, whether it's exercise or art or talking or journaling, having an outlet to work through things can be really helpful as you start to grow, because this is where personal development and personal growth really kicks in. Obviously, there's damage that can happen at the root and at the sacral, but this is where sort of what we really notice, insecurities, and the more work that you do trying to bring in things to strengthen you and to empower you, the less insecurity you're going to have. So that's a little bit about yellow. Does anybody have any questions? Am I going too fast? And is there anything that needs to be clarified?
No, you're
Do you
fine.
have
What was that?
do you have a replay? I missed the first 15 minutes.
So this is going to be recorded, and then it will be put up on the website, on Divination Academy's website. And then also it'll be put up on the Divination Academy's YouTube channel.
Thank
So
you.
you will be able to get the first bit. And then, yeah, so you'll be able to get the first bit. Any questions on yellow or the transitions between things? Because I think this is the first time I've really clarified that things don't aren't segmented, that it's a flow of energy. In Hinduism, they call the Kundalini is when it goes, when all of those energy centers are clear, and that energy that is coiled up in the base shoots
Talking
up.
about a snake coiled up.
No.
Well, it's not, yeah, it's a snake, or it's energy that then can, when everything's clear, can go up. That's according to Hinduism, and that's a Hindu belief.
What are you talking about?
Sorry.
Anyway, that was a slight detour. I'll keep going.
You said it's a snake. She said, yeah, it's like a snake. I'm listening to a conference.
You're also not on mute. If you hit the top bar, you should be able to see, or if you tap yourself, you should be able to see there should be a little microphone, and if you just tap it, it'll turn red, and then you're on mute. So
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you give an idea of other outlets besides drawing or artwork?
Exercise, spending time in nature, cooking, doing the things that you love to do, needlepoint,
And therapy.
and therapy. Yes, and therapy.
We all need therapy.
Yes, and this can really assist, complementary. This is complementary to the basis, to many of the basic things that go on. So yes, therapy, but I think it's also going back to what you love to do. There's things that we all love to do. It can be coloring, it doesn't have to be artistic per se. I'm not overly artistic. I keep trying, but I'm not overly artistic. It can be crafts if you're good at crafts and you love crafts. It can be exercise, because that's a place where a lot of people work out what's going on in them. They allow that mental process that happens as they are as they're working out. I would love that to be the case for me. However, it is not the case for me. But maybe if I keep trying, it'll someday be the case for me. But for many people, yeah, just doing the gardening. I mean, there's a lot of people that love to garden, and that's a place where you are in touch with the things that light you up and the things that make you feel well and anchored in who you are, that core of you, where you're not listening to the noise of history or of work or of sometimes family. You're not feeling all of those things. You're starting to feel that spark of who you are as a human and as an individual. Did that help any?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I don't,
It helped.
I don't cook either. I don't garden. I don't cook. I just play with rocks. But
Playing with rocks can be very relaxing.
yes, and that's absolutely, and that's God, I can't believe I didn't even say that. That's one of the things that I do is I continue to work with crystals. I continue to collect crystals. I shouldn't, but I do. And I continue to work with them. And the more I work with them, the more sensitive I am to them, and the more that they respond to me. So I think it's practice, and it's there is an aspect of belief as well. So we are going to go. I have 3 stones today. They are all in the yellow solar plexus energy center spectrum. They are not all bright. There's actually not that many super yellow stones. My cat is on my stones, so I'm sorry having to move her. So the first stone we're going to look at is citrine. Now, there is there's some controversy with citrine. What is the controversy with citrine, folks?
It doesn't need to be purified.
It doesn't need to be purified, but I would still do that, but that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking,
I'm sorry. Is this the stone that has to be heated? And a lot of times it's heated artificially.
yeah. Okay, so here's the deal. As far as I can tell, and I love crystals and I teach this class because I love them. Heat treated is when they take amethyst and they heat it up till it makes a chemical change and starts to look different. So if you ever see a cluster of citrine does not come in clusters ever. So if you see a cluster of citrine, it has been heat treated. Now, the thing about heat treated is it's made chemical changes. The chemical changes are within the structure of that stone. And so it has the energy. I find heat treated not to be as powerful or as strong as real citrine, but I also know that I have a bag of citrine. This is my bag of citrine, and I have 2 pieces of real citrine. The rest are heat treated. And I will work with the heat treated. I don't have a problem with it, but it is just not quite as strong. Citrine, this is one of my real citrines. And it's just sort of like a nice light yellow. It's got the inclusions of quartz because it's a kind of quartz. And here's my other one that has not been heat treated. There we go. And then this is my heat treated one. Part of how I can tell is this lighter part. So if you think about amethyst, hang on a second, let me show you. So citrine points are going to be consistent, the color is going to be more consistent across the whole thing. And then a heat treated citrine point is going to have a whiter end. Okay. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to put it up there. So see how it's got the whiter end on the bottom here? And then it turns sort of yellow up here. So this is heat treated. And then this one, it does not feel to be heat treated, but it's more consistent throughout. Now, citrines can be very dark. There's a lot of information that says that citrines have to be light in order to be genuine, and that's not true. They can be dark, but you have to take the whole stone into account and take a look at it. But it does have the healing capacity that goes with citrine. So I just wanted to bring up that controversy, because some people, so when you heat treat something or you put the titanium level on it, hang on one second, I'm so sorry. Okay. Sorry, okay, I will talk to you in a little bit, okay? Please close the door. Sorry about that, guys. Life happens. So, with citrine, it's just a little bit not as strong. I don't have a big deal. Now, the only one that I have a real issue with is the stuff that's being sold as turquoise. The stuff that is being sold for the most part as turquoise is
You're gonna hurt
actually,
my heart right now.
I know, Amy, I'm sorry.
I was
know.
devastated.
I know you were. I know you were. I felt as soon as I opened my
It's
mouth,
not your
I was
fault.
like,
It's
I
not your
know,
fault.
I know, but it still
Truly, people shouldn't
sucks.
label something that isn't what they're saying it is.
So,
It
right,
actually
and
sucks that people do that.
yes. Now, if you're buying a piece of Native American jewelry from the 40s, it's gonna have dark turquoise in it. It will, because that's genuine. That's when the mines in the Cinderella mine and the Sleeping Beauty mine and the Kingman mine were all very active. If you go to Kingman, Arizona, you can actually get some turquoise, but a majority of the turquoise that you see on the market today that is super blue with little black lines through it is actually dyed howlite. Yes, Amy, I'm sorry. I still feel bad. So
No,
the
it's
thing,
fine. I'm gonna go inside so I can show everybody because it's very deceptive.
so the thing about dyeing something is that it does not go in, it just colors it. Agate gets dyed a lot. And so if you have a big purple agate and it's super bright and vibrant, it is dyed, and it's not going to carry the frequency that goes with what purple agate or like grape agate goes by. It's not going to carry that frequency. Amy's going to come back and show us this little piece of dyed howlite. And the reason I bring this up, because it comes up, if when it's heat treated, the titanium, the aura quartz, these are people put a coating on it, but they heat it up, so it changes things when they heat it up. When they just dye it, let's see, Amy, so we can see everybody. Down a little bit, there you go. I don't know if everybody can see it. Looks like turquoise, but it's not. It's dyed. And I had to be the bearer of bad news. So when you're working with dyed
No,
things,
it's fine. I probably would have eventually figured it out anyway, but I'm glad you told me before I got into using it.
right.
Because
Well, you
I'm
probably
sorry,
would have
they're
felt the
mowing the lawn.
difference. You probably would have felt the difference where you're like, this isn't quite feeling like I thought it would. This is also where you have to trust your gut, because your gut will let you know many times. Anyway, back to the point is, if it's dyed, it carries the frequency of the initial stone. Oh, look at that. Is that citrine? Looks like citrine.
I don't know. That's why we're friends. You're supposed to tell me.
Well, I can't quite tell. We'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about that later. I think it might be citrine. But the main point of this little cul-de-sac was that if you're working with things that are dyed, they maintain their original lattice structure. If you're working with things that have been heat treated and coated with titanium, like aura quartz or rainbow hematite, they've been heated, and so they do have a frequency change. And so just be aware that they do work, but dyed ones keep the main frequency. So citrine, abundance, wealth. It's good for decision making, and it negates procrastination. Again, it's going to be this back and forth. it brings you joy. And so it kind of starts to negate if you have been feeling compressed. It opens up. It warms things so they can blossom. It if you're too hot, it can also cool you down. So if you have a lot of anger, citrine can also be very helpful to help you deal with that and find that balance. All of these stones, today we're going to talk about citrine, honey calcite, and tiger's eye. All of them said that they deal with the yin yang balance, the positive and negative balance in ones, and they help balance things out. We have anger is a emotion that most of us have, and keeping it under control is you don't want it to rule your life. So this is a really good stone. Citrine's a really good stone to try and find that balance between. I should probably carry citrine when I drive. Actually, I should put some citrine in the car because I get aggressive and I don't mean to, and I'm not like that normally. And so it can help find that balance in a person. And it gives you the strength to start to, so a personal development term that everybody's heard is your authentic self. Not exactly sure what that means, but what I do know is that the more work I do, the closer I get to something that feels genuine and something that feels not encumbered by my history. It is closer, I feel closer to who I feel like I am. And so I think that's what people mean by your authentic self, being true to who you are. And this is a great stone. All of these stones are great stones to help in that journey to get back to who you are. And the next one is green, and this will also help with that as well. But it
Tanya?
starts. Yeah.
We have a chat question. Are there citrines, probably spelled that wrong, amulets were such help with my anger would not be a bad thing?
No, it would be a good thing. But remember, intention's part of it. So ask. You ask and you thank. When we're working with crystals, we ask them to help us, and we need to thank them for helping us. They are of service to humans. I have heard stories. I don't know how, but I have heard stories that crystals give up themselves to help the human race get more better. That's an awesome term there. To become closer to what one's design is. And so I always, when I'm working and I'm doing something with crystals, I don't always, I do my very best to thank them for their service. And when I'm doing something specific, I do ask, I request assistance. I was listening to something the other day, and the person was commanding the crystals for assistance. And it made me very uncomfortable. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't command them. I would request of them. So that's me. You do you and what works best with you. But so for anger, absolutely. I think having a pendant, especially if it's longer and closer down to here, would be a perfect place to have a nice little citrine. Put it on in the morning, saying this is going to make a difference, keep things balanced, keep things optimistic. I think that's great. Perfect use for it. All right. Any other questions about citrine? Okay. Now we're going to go to honey calcite. So this is my piece of honey calcite. And it it's a huge stone for me, and it is it's very big, but it has a wonderfully gentle and warm nature to it. It made me, and I was reading different, one of the things that I do before each class is I choose the stones that I'm going to work on with everybody. And then I go to different resources and I find the trends so that it's closest to what Judy Hall and Karen Fraser and Karen Ryan and what these people who are the experts in the field for what they say. So I try and find the balance. But the one thing that came up with the honey calcite is it gives you the time to smell the roses. It slows one down from the hyperness of our society and of our culture. And it's really good for balancing the negative aspects or the things that are taking away and the positive aspects that are trying. It gives them a good balance in between. And it has success. It said that it's, you can charge it. Again, we're programming, we're requesting the calcite, we're requesting the stone to support the changes that you've made. It's really good. And if you have made some changes, you're trying to move from a situation where that has been, say, crushing on you or hard on you, and you're trying to find that smoother place, this is a great stone for that. It allows one that strength and the support for the changes that you need to make while not being too hard. It is super gentle. And I sleep with it underneath my pillow. So that's where my honey calcite comes from, underneath my pillow. And then I clean it. I put it on my big selenite stick and then I clean it. Does anybody have any questions about honey calcite? Okay, we will go on to probably if you have a couple of crystals, you probably have one. And it's tiger's eye. And again, this goes with solar plexus and it's, as I always say, all crystals are grounding because they come from the ground. This one is a little bit easier if you're feeling a little bit of a way with the fairies, or a little bit like just too intellectual. You're intellectualizing things too much. This is a great stone for that because it will bring it back down into you, so you are learning and going to trust your instinct, your intuition, those parts of you. It helps neutralize worry, depression, inhibitions, and negativity. Now, if you are on medication, do not stop taking your medication. Thank you. This can help and this can start a shift, but do not stop taking your medication because of this stone or because of any stone. It helps for us to, like, the main thing with this one is that it'll help you listen to your gut, to your instinct. It'll help you get through the noise that our front brain tends to just compile, and those worries and, oh my God, I didn't get the 50 things that I meant to get done. And it makes it so that you find what you need to do and that you're trusting yourself on the things that you need to do. It has the same aspects as the other two, which is to do with abundance. And I think it's clear with the color yellow is that there's that radiant kind of feel that goes with it, that goes with these stones. They radiate through, and they sort of like shine a spotlight on the things that may be dragging you down. And so you can take it and you can use it and feel more in balance, back again to that positive and negative, that yin yang balance. This is another one of those great stones that helps you get that balance. Now, when we talk about green stones next week, we'll really hit the pivotal point between the physical and then of the more mental, spiritual, like higher, not higher, better, just high. They're called higher, sort of higher center. So green is that midpoint. This is heading towards that green midpoint. And so this really is a good place to start to look at, if you're journaling about decisions that you've made and you're trying to clear them up, this would be a great stone to have at the top of your journal while you're working. This one that I have is a gift to me, and it has an iron. It's a little bit of iron in it. It's got like an iron streak in it. There's tiger's iron, which this kind of qualifies for, but not quite. You'll also see blue tiger's eye, which is also called hawk's eye, and you'll see red tiger's eye, which is called falcon's eye. Those are just other names for them. I have a number of bracelets that have all three of them on it. The blue has it has many of the same aspects, but it has some things to do with communication, which we'll get to when we tackle blue. And then the red has a bit more of a heavier protective grounding aspect to. All three of them together are very protective. Of the golden and yellow stones, tiger's eye is one of the more protective stones. Obviously, if you need a stone to be protective and the only stone you've got is a piece of citrine, then ask it to be protective and it will be. So this tiger's eye allows a person to become well-rounded. You think about citrine as a bit of this bubble over factor, has that kind of the joy and that childhood enthusiasm and that bubbling over in happiness. And slower, but the tiger's eye is really like tackling those things that can challenge us in life, and making healthy and progressive decisions for ourselves. Not looking for someone else to tell you, but for yourself and for what you need as a human being, because everybody has different needs. Our society tells us that we need to be very much the same, but our whole structure, from fingerprints to irises to DNA, says that we fall within the same structure, but we are unique, and our energy waves are exactly the same. And I'm sure in the next 10 years, they'll be able to start to read energy better than they already do. Carillion photography is a kind of photography that can take pictures of the aura, and everybody's aura is going to be different because it's as unique as you are. So I think tiger's eye is a really good personal development stone to keep you from getting bogged down, but also helping you address those things that need to be addressed. So those are the three stones that I had for today. And I wanted to name some other, give some other stones so that people would know that there's not just these three, but golden healer, pyrite, yellow opal, golden selenite, sulfur. If anybody finds a good deal for sulfur, let me know, because every time I try and buy it, it's so expensive. Yellow apatite, and I just had another one. Yellow adventurine, and bumblebee jasper. And they all have this, and bumblebee jasper is awesome. It has that kind of citrine bubble over, that kind of feel. I guess bumblebees kind of have that, because bumblebees are aerodynamically not built to fly, but they do. And they have that sort of energy. I don't know. If you're allergic to bees, then you probably don't feel the same way. But bumblebees, when I see a bumblebee, I just am in awe, and it makes me feel excited and bright. And so those are some of the other yellow and golden stones that we didn't go over, but they're going to carry a lot of the frequency that we went over today. That sort of upbeat, addressing, the combination of one's emotions and one's intellect, and finding, really finding one's identity and self-worth and empowerment. Actually, if I was to give one word for yellow, I think it would be empowerment. It gives you that back to yourself so that you are empowered to do the very best that you can. So, does anybody have any questions?
Could topaz also be considered part of the yellow group?
Yellow topaz, absolutely. Yeah. There's other colors of topaz, which are going to carry more of the frequency of the color. And one of the things, like if you don't know anything about a stone, but you know colors, sort of like how colors work, you're going to be closer to being able to figure out what that stone does than any other aspect. I know I started with the lattice work because that's the very core of it, but it's more important to be able to know colors, because then when you are looking at a stone, you already have a foundation for what that stone frequency is. So absolutely, yellow topaz is going to carry this enthusiasm and joy, and it's a clear stone like citrine, so it's going to have a bit more of that sort of happy pop, whereas the thicker ones are going to have more of a heavier sort of keeping things solid, looking at things more thickly, more densely. Where's my little piece of pyrite? There it is. And what's interesting is this is a piece of pyrite, and this is my little piece of citrine, and this is about twice as heavy as this. And tiger's eye is the same. And I'm going to hazard a guess. I'm not going to bet, because I only bet when I'm positive, but I would hazard a guess that the less transparent a stone is, the more opaque a stone is, the heavier it's going to be, the more dense it's going to be than those stones that are transparent or that are more quartz-like. That's just going to be my guess. I'll look into it for next week. Does anybody have any other questions?
The chat's clear.
The chat's clear. Well, this is the point when, if you have a question, please come and ask me now, because this is the time that if I went over something too quickly, or if it's I didn't make something clear, then I can help clarify that, and that makes it easier for people.
Hi, I'm just wondering, you've explained how to put a piece, one of the crystals in front of you if you're journaling, or you can wear it in a pendant. If I'm working with healing with someone, would I put the crystal like on that area?
You can. I
Yeah.
think it depends on, so when I'm healing, the first thing I'm doing is I am feeling in the aura to see where there are densities or hot spots. I call them, they turn up to me as hot spots. That's how they turn up to me. It is each person, how they translate it is different. Just like we can't explain what the color yellow actually looks like, because each person has their own ideas. So when I'm healing, I will, first of all, when I'm healing, I don't wear any, I wear jewelry. I wear these for protection every single day. If I'm doing healing work, electrical healing work, I don't wear any jewelry because I don't want it to interfere. If I feel a hot spot, I will try and remove it. I may use a stone to try and wind in some of the positive energy, and I may wind it down and put it on them. It just depends on how it feels. If I'm trying to, if something obviously clockwise winds things in and counterclockwise winds things out. If you feel that something's, I was going to say jammed, but if something's really stuck, you could take that stone and you could wind it out, and then you wouldn't put it on them. But if you're trying, then I think it's got to be individual and for the circumstance that's called for. But absolutely, I mean, and I know in Reiki, they put lots of stones on. There are other energy centers, like in your elbow, where your elbow is, where your wrist is, where your palms are. There's lots of energy centers in the body. I'm focusing on the 7 because that's the one that most people are familiar with, and the one that most people have a idea of how that works within the structure of the human aura and the human body. But if somebody has chronic pain on their shoulder, you could take pyrite. I mean, you could take tiger's eye, and it has an aspect of pain relief. Only one place said it, but I would go with that. And then if it's a muscle or a tendon kind of thing, then I would absolutely place it on it, and I would ask for some help, and I would ask for some relief to assist that area. But absolutely. And then obviously the stones, you would clean the stones beforehand, and then when you're done, you would clean the stones after. Whether, I know Carrie, I don't think Carrie's on today, but so I've been working on breath, because when we started this, like, she's like, oh yeah, I can do it with my breath. And I'm like, I hyperventilate and feel like I'm going to pass out. Now I'm a fire and earth sign. So I use smoke and I use sound good, but I'm learning how to clean things with my breath. And you can do it because it's again, it's a mental projection that you're doing into into a stone to clean it out, to clean out the history. And if you've been working on someone, you want to clean it out for the next person.
Right. Okay.
So that would be, yeah. Any other questions? Any other comments? I'm going to stop the recording. However, I usually stay on for another 10 or 15 minutes just to check in with people and see how things went. Let me hang on a second. So I'm stopping.